Have you ever wondered what life would feel like if nothing could touch you anymore? Not the insults, not the betrayals, not even the ghosts of your past? Imagine walking into a room and no matter what anyone thinks or says, you remain unshaken. That's not arrogance. That's not numbness. That's a level of psychological freedom Carl Jung believed every human being could reach. The day you realize nothing can hurt you anymore, but here's the part nobody talks about. This freedom doesn't come from building walls, from hardening your heart, or from pretending you don't care. It comes from something far deeper. Something far scarier, the day you stop running from yourself. You see, Jung taught that the greatest suffering in life doesn't come from what others do to us. It comes from the inner war, the parts of ourselves we repress, the truths we avoid, the shadows we refuse to face. When you fear your own shadow, every insult cuts you, every rejection burns, every failure feels like death. But once you embrace your shadow, something miraculous happens. The world loses its power to wound you. Wait until you hear this. The person who has faced their own darkness is untouchable. Why? Because nothing outside of them is worse than what they have already faced within. Let's break this down with a story. Imagine a man who always seeks approval. He's terrified of being disliked. Every comment, every silence, every side glance feels like a knife. But one day, he begins shadow work. He sees the truth. Deep down, he despises himself for not being perfect. The hatred he fears from others is only a reflection of his own. And then comes the turning point. He faces it. He admits, yes, I am imperfect. Yes, I carry flaws, and suddenly their disapproval no longer destroys him. Because he has already faced the truth himself, that's the day nothing can hurt him anymore. But here's the part nobody talks about. Freedom doesn't come from escaping pain. It comes from absorbing it, integrating it, and realizing it can no longer control you. Jung often warned that people live in masks, the persona, the image of goodness, success, and likability. But these masks make us fragile. Because when someone attacks the mask, we crumble. When someone exposes our flaw, we panic. When life strips away our roles, we collapse. But when you drop the mask, when you embrace both your light and shadow, insults lose their sting. Rejection loses its chains. You realize you cannot be destroyed by truth. Wait until you hear this next truth. Jung believed the moment you stop identifying with the ego, pain itself changes form. You don't deny it. You don't avoid it. But it no longer defines you. Think of it like a storm. If you believe you are the storm, you feel like you're drowning in chaos. But once you realize you are the sky, vast, unshaken, containing both sunshine and storm, the thunder no longer terrifies you. That's what individuation is. The recognition that you are not just your wounds, your ego, or your history. You are the whole. Let's make this even more real. Have you ever been in a situation where you feared rejection, maybe in love, maybe in friendship, maybe in your career? You held back your truth because the thought of being abandoned was unbearable. But imagine if you reached the point where rejection didn't scare you, where losing people, losing approval, losing even status couldn't touch your essence. How differently would you live? How boldly would you speak? How unapologetically would you exist? Here's the shocking part. Most people never get there. They remain prisoners not because the world is cruel, but because their own shadow terrifies them more than any enemy. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Translation, if you don't face yourself, life will keep hurting you until you do. But wait until you hear this. Once you face it, life's weapons turn into illusions. Think of the child who was always criticized. They grow up carrying the wound. I am never enough as an adult. Every disapproving look, every piece of feedback feels like an attack. But once they confront that childhood wound, once they sit with the pain, cry the tears, rage at the silence, and then embrace the child within, something shifts. The next time someone criticizes them, it no longer feels like death. It's just feedback. The wound is healed. The chain is broken, and that's when you realize nothing can hurt you anymore. Here's the part nobody talks about. Freedom isn't about control. You can't control the world. People will betray you. Life will throw curveballs. Death, illness, loss, they are all inevitable. But Jung believed that when you align with your deeper self, the self beyond ego, these things can wound the body. They can even break the heart, but they cannot destroy the soul. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine your life as a mirror. Every insult, every rejection, every heartbreak is like a stone thrown at the glass. If you identify only with the glass, you'll shatter. But if you realize you are also the one holding the mirror, the one observing, the one behind it all, then even if the surface cracks, you remain whole. This next truth will shock you. The day you realize nothing can hurt you anymore is the day you stop demanding the world to be safe. You stop asking people to never betray you. You stop needing approval to feel alive. Instead, you stand in the storm, you embrace the chaos, and you say, I am more than this. I can hold this. I cannot be broken. That's not coldness. That's not detachment. That's radical wholeness. And once you reach that point, life itself transforms. Because suddenly, you're free to love without fear. You're free to speak without chains. You're free to walk away without guilt. You're free to live without the constant anxiety of being hurt, because you know the secret. Jung left us with, the only wounds that can hurt you are the ones you refuse to face. Let me ask you a question. What if pain only has power over you because you keep resisting it? What if suffering isn't born from what happens to you, but from your refusal to face it? Jung often reminded us that neurosis is always a substitute for legitimate suffering. In other words, when we avoid the raw truth of pain, it doesn't disappear. It transforms into anxiety, addictions, compulsions, and endless cycles of self-sabotage. Here's the part nobody talks about. Suffering itself is not the enemy. Resistance is. Think about it this way. When you avoid grief, it grows heavier. When you push down anger, it leaks out in twisted ways. When you deny fear, it controls your every move. But the moment you turn toward it, the moment you allow yourself to fully experience what you've been running from, its grip begins to weaken. Wait until you hear this. Jung believed that every avoided wound becomes a master. Every rejected emotion becomes a chain. But when you embrace them, they transform. Let me share a story. A man spent years avoiding the grief of losing his father. He buried it under work, distractions, and endless noise. But no matter how much he achieved, there was an emptiness that haunted him. He thought the grief would destroy him if he let it in. One day he broke down. He allowed himself to feel it fully, the tears, the anger, the loneliness. And something miraculous happened. Instead of being destroyed, he felt lighter. The grief didn't vanish, but it no longer controlled him. For the first time in years, he could breathe. That's the paradox. By embracing suffering, he discovered freedom. Here's the shocking truth. The pain you run from becomes your prison. The pain you face becomes your teacher. But here's the part nobody talks about. Facing pain doesn't mean wallowing in it forever. It doesn't mean drowning in despair. It means meeting it with courage, sitting with it without judgment, and allowing it to reveal its lesson. Think of pain as a messenger. When you ignore it, it screams louder. But when you listen, it quiets down. Pain says, look here. There's something unresolved. Something unhealed. Something you've been carrying too long. Jung believed that if you follow the thread of your suffering, it always leads to hidden parts of your psyche, the shadow, the unlived life, the repressed truth. Wait until you hear this. What you most fear to face is often the key to your liberation. Let's make this even more real. Imagine you've always feared rejection. So you bend, twist, and shape yourself to please others. But every time you do, you feel more disconnected, more hollow. You avoid the pain of rejection, but you end up living rejected by yourself. Jung would say, the only way out is through. You must face the rejection you've been avoiding, not externally, but internally. You must sit with the fear and admit, yes, I may not be loved by everyone. Yes, I may be abandoned. But I will no longer abandon myself. That's the moment the chains break. But here's the part nobody talks about. Embracing pain is terrifying because it feels like death. And in a way it is. It's the death of the false self. The death of the mask. The death of the illusion that life should be painless. Jung said, "There is no birth of consciousness without pain. You cannot awaken without suffering." Not because suffering is punishment, but because suffering is the crack through which light enters. Here's a metaphor. Imagine a seed buried underground. In order to grow, the seed must crack. That cracking looks like destruction, but it's actually the beginning of life. Your suffering works the same way. When your heart cracks open, when your illusions fall apart, when your ego breaks, it feels like death. But it's the doorway to growth. Without the cracking, the seed would never sprout. Without suffering, consciousness would never awaken. Wait until you hear this next truth. The reason most people remain trapped is because they run from this cracking. They build lives designed to avoid discomfort. They cling to routines, relationships, identities that keep them safe from their wounds. But in doing so, they also keep themselves safe from transformation. So let me ask you, what pain are you still avoiding? What truth have you buried so deeply that you've convinced yourself it's not even there? What memory, what wound, what betrayal still whispers in the dark? Until you face it, it will own you. But the day you turn toward it, the day you allow yourself to say, "I am ready to see it, to feel it, to embrace it," that's the day its chains begin to dissolve. Here's the part nobody talks about. Embracing pain doesn't make you weaker. It makes you indestructible. Because when you faced your deepest wound, the world has nothing left to threaten you with. Let me give you another story. A woman was terrified of being alone. Her whole life she clung to relationships, even toxic ones, because solitude felt unbearable. But eventually she found herself abandoned. She had no choice but to face it. At first, the loneliness consumed her. But over time, she began to discover something new. Silence became a teacher. Solitude became strength. The fear that once controlled her lost its grip. The day she embraced her aloneness was the day she realized nothing can hurt her anymore. Here's the shocking part. The freedom you seek lies on the other side of the very pain you run from. Jung believed individuation. The journey of becoming whole is only possible when you stop avoiding suffering. Not because suffering is good in itself, but because it strips away illusions, forces you inward and reveals your true self. Think of it like a fire. When you resist the fire, it burns you. But when you walk into it consciously, it purifies you. It burns away what is false and leaves only what is real. That's what shadow work is, a conscious walk into the flames. So let me leave you with this challenge. What if you stopped running? What if you turned toward your deepest fear, your greatest wound, your heaviest grief, and said, "I am ready to face you. You cannot destroy me, you can only transform me," because here's the ultimate truth. Jung left us with, the day you stop resisting pain is the day you realize it can no longer hurt you. Let me ask you something powerful. Why do so many people cling to their suffering, even when it destroys them? Why does victimhood feel safer than freedom? The answer is uncomfortable, but it's one of Jung's greatest warnings. Here's the part nobody talks about. Many people unconsciously choose victimhood because it gives them a sense of identity. Think about it. When you define yourself by your wounds, your traumas, your betrayals, you know who you are. I am the one who was abandoned. I am the one who was betrayed. I am the one who never had a chance. It hurts. Yes, but it also feels stable, safe, predictable. Wait until you hear this. Freedom is scarier than pain. Because if you let go of the story of your suffering, who are you then? If you are no longer defined by your trauma, then what identity is left? This is the hidden paradox of healing. People say they want to be free, but deep down, many resist it, because freedom requires them to step into the unknown. And the unknown is terrifying. Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." That includes clinging to victimhood, because at least victimhood feels familiar. Let me give you a story. There was a man who grew up in poverty. His whole life, he carried resentment toward the world. Life is unfair. People like me never get ahead. That story gave him comfort because it explained his suffering. But when opportunities came, he sabotaged them. Why? Because if he succeeded, his story would collapse. He would have no excuse left. He wasn't afraid of failure. He was afraid of the responsibility that came with freedom. Here's the shocking truth. Many people don't actually fear suffering. They fear responsibility. Because responsibility means they can no longer blame life, their parents, their past, or the world. Responsibility means admitting, my freedom depends on me. But here's the part nobody talks about. This is the very turning point. Jung described in Individuation. The day you stop blaming the world is the day you begin reclaiming your power. Wait until you hear this. Jung believed that every victim story has a hidden shadow. If you constantly say, I am powerless, your shadow secretly contains your hidden strength. If you constantly say, I was abandoned, your shadow secretly contains your ability to stand strong alone. What you suppress in one place, you carry unconsciously in another. The tragedy is, most people never reclaim that hidden power. They die clinging to their story. Let's use a metaphor. Imagine a bird kept in a cage its whole life. One day, the door is opened. The bird looks at the sky but refuses to fly out. Why? Because freedom means risk? Freedom means the bird must use its wings. The cage, though painful, feels familiar, safer. Victimhood is that cage. The door is open, but many refuse to walk through. But here's the part nobody talks about. The only reason the cage exists is because the bird refuses to leave. Let me share another story. A woman had been betrayed in love. She carried that betrayal for decades, telling everyone, I can never trust again. That story became her shield. But it also became her prison. She thought the betrayal had destroyed her, but in truth, her refusal to let go was what kept her stuck. The day she realized this was the day she wept, not because of the betrayal itself, but because of the years she lost hiding behind it. That's when she understood. Nothing had the power to hurt her anymore except her own choice to stay wounded. Wait until you hear this. The moment you reclaim responsibility for your suffering is the moment the world loses its ability to control you. Think of it this way. If you believe your happiness depends on others, their love, their approval, their validation, then they will always have the power to hurt you. But the day you stop outsourcing your worth, the day you say, I choose to define myself, I choose to create meaning, I choose to heal, that's the day you become untouchable. Here's the paradox. Jung revealed, true strength is born when you accept complete responsibility for your life. Not blame, responsibility, there's a difference. Blame says, it's my fault. Responsibility says, it's in my hands, and that shift changes everything. But here's the part nobody talks about. Responsibility feels like a burden at first, because suddenly there's no one left to blame. No scapegoat, no story to hide behind. It's just you standing naked before life. But that nakedness is freedom. Because once you own your suffering, it can no longer own you. Let me put it into a metaphor you'll never forget. Imagine your suffering as a wild horse. If you run from it, it chases you. If you deny it, it tramples you. But if you climb onto its back and take the reins, it becomes your power. The horse doesn't change. Your relationship to it does. That's responsibility. Wait until you hear this. Every moment you say, I cannot help how I feel. I cannot change my past. I cannot control my future. You hand the reins of your life to someone else. But every moment you say, I accept it, I face it, I will create meaning from it, you take the reins back. That's the moment nothing can hurt you anymore. Here's another truth Jung left us. Suffering without meaning crushes us. Suffering with meaning transforms us. The difference between victimhood and freedom is not the absence of pain, it's the presence of meaning. Think of Viktor Frankl, a man Jung would have admired deeply. Frankl survived concentration camps not because his suffering disappeared, but because he gave it meaning. He discovered that even in the darkest conditions, no one could take away the freedom to choose his response. Jung would call that individuation in its purest form, the self rising above the wounds of the ego. But here's the part nobody talks about. Meaning isn't found. It's created. It's forged by your decision to stop asking, why me? And start asking, what now? What can this suffering teach me? How can I use it to grow? The day you ask those questions is the day the chains fall off. So let me challenge you right now. What story are you still telling about your suffering? What identity are you clinging to that secretly keeps you trapped? And are you ready, truly ready, to let it go? Because here's the truth, nothing can hurt you anymore the moment you realize you are not your story. You are the one writing it. And you can choose to write a new ending. Let me ask you something that might shake you to your core. What if the very thing you've been running from all your life, your shame, your anger, your jealousy, your fear, is actually the source of your greatest strength? Carl Jung believed this, and he gave it a name, the shadow. The shadow is everything you suppress, deny, or disown about yourself. It's the parts you say, that's not me. I could never feel that. I'm not that kind of person. But here's the shocking truth. The more you push it away, the more power it has over you. But here's the part nobody talks about. The shadow doesn't just contain your darkness. It also contains your hidden light. Your creativity, your strength, your power, your confidence. All of it gets buried in the same place as your shame. Wait until you hear this. The reason many people feel lifeless, numb, or stuck is not because they don't have power. It's because their power is locked away in the shadow they refuse to face. Let me give you a story. A man grows up being told never to show anger. He learns to suppress it, to smile when he's hurt, to stay quiet when he's disrespected. On the surface, he looks calm, agreeable, nice, but beneath his anger doesn't vanish. It builds. One day, it erupts uncontrollably, and he doesn't understand why. This is the shadow at work, but here's the part nobody talks about. That man's anger wasn't just destructive. It also contained his boundaries, his sense of justice, his voice. If he had learned to integrate his shadow, he would have discovered that his anger was the key to his strength. Jung warned us of this danger. When you ignore your shadow, it doesn't disappear, it controls you unconsciously. It shows up in your relationships, your choices, your addictions, your projections onto others. Here's the shocking truth. The people you hate most often reveal the qualities you've buried in yourself. That's why Jung said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Think about that. The person you call arrogant? Maybe they're showing you the confidence you've denied yourself. The person you call selfish? Maybe they reflect the part of you that's been too afraid to set boundaries. The person you envy? Maybe they embody the courage you've buried in your shadow. But here's the part nobody talks about. This is why facing your shadow feels like death. Because to integrate it, you must admit, I am not as good as I thought I was. I am not as innocent as I believed. I am not just the light, I am also the darkness. Wait until you hear this. Jung said no one becomes enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. That means the path to freedom is not about pretending to be good. It's about owning your whole self. Even the parts you despise. Let me put it into a metaphor. Imagine your psyche as a house. You've decorated the living room, that's your ego, the part you show to others. But in the basement, you've shoved everything you don't want anyone to see. Every insecurity, every failure, every forbidden desire. You lock the door thinking you're safe. But here's the truth. The basement isn't gone. And the longer you keep it locked, the more it begins to seep into the rest of the house. The day you realize nothing can hurt you anymore is the day you walk into that basement with courage. The monsters you feared turn out to be exiled parts of yourself, waiting to be acknowledged, healed, and integrated. But here's the part nobody talks about. Integration is not about eliminating the shadow. It's about befriending it. Because once you bring the shadow into awareness, it loses its power to control you unconsciously. Let me give you another story. A woman always tried to please everyone. She hated conflict. She thought being good meant always saying yes. But she grew resentful, burned out, invisible. One day she began shadow work. She admitted the truth. She did have selfish desires. She did want to say no. She did want to put herself first sometimes. At first, this terrified her. She thought it made her a bad person. But when she embraced it, she discovered her boundaries. She discovered her voice. And for the first time, she felt free. Wait until you hear this. The shadow is not your enemy. It is your ally. It holds the key to the parts of yourself you've been too afraid to embody. But why do so few people face it? Because society rewards the mask. Society tells you, be good, Be nice, be agreeable. Be positive. Nobody tells you. Own your rage. Own your jealousy. Own your greed. And yet, without owning them, they own you. Here's the paradox Jung exposed. The shadow you fear is actually the doorway to your authenticity. The day you stop pretending to be perfect is the day you discover who you really are. Think of it like this. If you only live in the light, you're half a person. If you embrace your shadow, you become whole. And wholeness is the very definition of individuation, the process Jung described as becoming your true self. But here's the part nobody talks about. Individuation requires sacrifice. You must sacrifice the false image of yourself, the mask you've built, the identity that kept you safe. That false self will resist. It will whisper, "Don't go there. Don't look at that. Don't admit this." But if you listen, you'll stay in bondage. The day you face your shadow, you'll feel fear. You'll feel shame. You'll feel like you're falling apart. But what's really happening is that your old self is dissolving so your true self can emerge. Wait until you hear this. Once you integrate your shadow, nothing outside of you can hurt you anymore. Why? Because the world can no longer use your unacknowledged wounds against you. Think about it. If you've owned your anger, no one can manipulate you with guilt. If you've owned your insecurity, no insult can shake you. If you've owned your fear, no threat can control you. When the shadow is integrated, the hooks of the world cannot sink into you anymore. This is why Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. But once you make it conscious, once you face your shadow, fate loses its grip. And in that moment, you realize nothing can hurt you anymore." Let me ask you a question that might sting. What happens to your relationships when you finally stop needing approval? This is where Carl Jung's insight becomes not just personal, but relational. Because the day you integrate your shadow, the day you stop playing the role of the good one, the agreeable one, the pleaser, something radical happens. People around you start to panic. Why? Because you are no longer predictable. Wait until you hear this. Most relationships are built on unconscious contracts. One person agrees, without words, to play the giver, while the other plays the taker. One agrees to stay quiet, while the other takes the stage. One agrees to be weak, so the other can feel strong. These contracts feel safe, but they are built on imbalance. And here's the part nobody talks about. The moment you break that contract, the mask of the other person shatters. Let's say you've always been the friend who listens, who supports, who sacrifices. The day you finally say, "No, I need something too," some people will celebrate your growth, but others will feel betrayed because they benefited from your silence. They will accuse you of changing, of being selfish, of not who you used to be. But here's the truth. You didn't change. You simply became whole. Jung believed individuation always comes with a cost. And the cost is that many of your old relationships will not survive your authenticity. Let me give you an example. A woman grows up as the perfect daughter. She never causes trouble, always helps, never asks for anything. But as an adult, she feels drained, anxious, invisible. When she begins shadow work, she discovers the part of herself that is angry, the part that wants freedom. She begins to speak up. She says no. She sets boundaries. Suddenly, her parents accuse her of being difficult. Friends drift away. Relationships feel like they're collapsing. Wait until you hear this. What's collapsing is not love. What's collapsing is the illusion the relationships were built on. Here's the shocking truth. Many people are addicted not to who you really are, but to the role you've played for them. And the day you refuse to keep playing that role, their comfort with you dies. But here's the paradox. Though you may lose people, you also gain something greater: alignment. Because for the first time, the people who stay are those who actually love you, not the mask. Think of it like this. When you were hiding your shadow, you were attracting people to a version of you that wasn't real. But when you embrace your shadow, you send a new signal into the world. It may repel some, but it also magnetizes others who resonate with your true essence. Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But here's the part nobody talks about. The privilege also comes with solitude. Because when you become whole, You no longer fit neatly into other people's boxes. You no longer bend to keep the peace. You no longer carry the burdens of others at the expense of yourself. And that makes you harder to control. Let me put it in a metaphor. Imagine you've always been a candle in a dark room, giving light to everyone around you while slowly burning yourself out. The day you integrate your shadow, you realize you are never just a candle. You are a fire. And fire doesn't just sit quietly in a corner. Fire changes the environment. Fire demands space. Fire makes people either gather around in awe or run away in fear. Wait until you hear this. Your wholeness will trigger people's shadows. Think about it. If you've always been accommodating and suddenly you set a boundary, you might trigger someone's fear of abandonment. If you've always been selfless and suddenly you claim your desires, you might trigger someone's insecurity about their own selfishness. If you've always been agreeable and suddenly you say no, you might trigger someone's need for control. And here's the part nobody talks about. This isn't your fault. This is their shadow reacting to your growth. But here's the gift. By standing firm in your wholeness, you give them a mirror. You show them what's possible. You awaken them to the truth that they, too, are allowed to be whole. Let me tell you a story. A man spent years in a toxic relationship with a partner who controlled him through guilt. He was always told, if you loved me, you'd do this. If you cared, you wouldn't say no. For years, he complied. But then, through therapy and shadow work, he realized he had been denying his own needs. One day, he calmly said, I won't do that anymore. His partner exploded, accused him of being cruel, of changing, of not loving her. He felt fear, but he also felt something new. Freedom. Wait until you hear this. When he stood in his truth, the relationship ended. And though he grieved, he also discovered a new sense of self. Later, he attracted friendships and relationships where he could show up as himself, without playing a role. This is the paradox Jung warned us about. Individuation may feel like loss, but it is really liberation. But here's the part nobody talks about. Even your closest family and friends may resist your growth, because when you change, you threaten the entire system. Families, friendships, workplaces, they all have hidden dynamics. And when one person stops playing their role, everyone else is forced to adjust. Some will resist, others will grow with you, but remember this. If your growth threatens someone's comfort, it was never love, it was control. Here's the shocking truth. When you embrace your shadow and become whole, you may lose the approval of others, but you gain something far more precious, self-respect. And once you have that, no rejection can destroy you. This is why Jung's teachings are so powerful. He shows us that freedom is not about external validation. It's not about everyone liking you. It's not about playing a role to keep the peace. Freedom is about standing in your wholeness, even if it costs you everything superficial. Let me put it another way. The day you realize nothing can hurt you anymore is the day you stop bargaining with your authenticity. You stop negotiating your truth for scraps of approval. You stop dimming your fire to keep others comfortable, and yes, you will lose people. But you will also lose your chains. Wait until you hear this. The people who remain, the people who arrive after your transformation, will see you clearly. They won't love you for your mask. They'll love you for your depth, your strength, your wholeness. And that kind of connection is worth more than all the false peace in the world. So, if you are in that stage right now, losing friends, feeling isolated, being misunderstood, remember this. It is not a sign you are failing. It is a sign you are awakening. Because as Jung would remind us, individuation is not about pleasing the world. It's about fulfilling your soul, and when your soul is fulfilled, nothing can hurt you anymore. Let me ask you this. What if the greatest shift isn't in your relationships, but in how you see reality itself? Carl Jung understood something profound. The shadow isn't just about what you repress personally. It's also about how you perceive the world. When you integrate your shadow, it's not only that you stop being manipulated by others, you also stop being manipulated by life itself. Wait until you hear this. The world outside of you is not. Separate from the world inside you. That's why Jung spoke of projection. The fears you repress, the desires you hide, the wounds you deny, they don't disappear. You see them everywhere, painted onto other people, onto events, onto the world itself. But here's the part nobody talks about: the day you integrate. Your shadow is the day those projections begin to dissolve. And when they dissolve, the world looks completely different. Think about it. Have you ever noticed that two people can walk through the same city, live through the same events, yet one sees opportunity and beauty, while the other sees only danger and betrayal? Why? Because they're not seeing reality as it is. They're seeing their own inner world reflected back at them. Here's the shocking truth. The world is your mirror. Jung said it this way: who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes. The more you look inside, the less you're fooled by the illusions outside. Let me give you a story. A man always believed people were out to get him. He saw betrayal everywhere. Every coworker was an enemy, every stranger a threat. But when he finally confronted his shadow, he realized the truth. It wasn't the world that was betraying him. It was his own self-betrayal, born from years of denying his needs, silencing his voice, abandoning himself. Once he stopped betraying himself, his entire experience of life shifted. Suddenly, people seemed kinder. Opportunities appeared where before he saw only threats. The world hadn't changed. He had. But here's the part nobody talks about: until you face your shadow, you live inside a distorted reality. You think you're seeing truth, but really you're seeing your wounds. And this is why facing the shadow is terrifying, because it means admitting, I have been the architect of my own suffering. Wait until you hear this. The day you accept that truth is the day you become powerful. Because if your suffering came from within, then so does your freedom. Let me put it into a metaphor. Imagine wearing tinted glasses your whole life. If the lenses are red, the whole world looks angry. If they're blue, the whole world looks cold. You argue with people insisting this is how the world really is. But one day, you take off the glasses and you realize the world was never red or blue. It was your own lens coloring everything. That's shadow work. It's the removal of distortion. Here's the shocking truth. Once you remove those lenses, you stop being a victim of the world. This is why Jung's teachings were so radical. He didn't just want us to know our conscious selves. He wanted us to know the unconscious, the hidden river shaping every thought, every choice, every perception. But here's the part nobody talks about. When you integrate your shadow, you don't just gain clarity, you gain resilience. Because you stop expecting the world to save you or protect you. You no longer crumble when someone betrays you, because you've stopped betraying yourself. You no longer collapse when someone rejects you, because you no longer reject yourself. Think about that. Imagine walking through life with the deep knowing, yes, pain may come, disappointment may come, but none of it can destroy me, because I have already faced the darkest part of myself. Wait until you hear this. That's the moment life stops being your enemy, because the truth is, the world has never been against you. It has always been reflecting you. Let me tell you another story. A woman always feared abandonment. She clung to relationships, terrified of being left. Every breakup shattered her, every silence felt like death. Through shadow work, she realized she had abandoned herself long ago. She had silenced her own desires, ignored her own needs, refused to stand up for herself. When she began to heal, something shifted. She no longer begged others to stay. She no longer saw abandonment everywhere she looked. And here's the miracle. She realized that even if someone left, she would never leave herself again. And that changed everything. Here's the part nobody talks about. When you stop abandoning yourself, you stop fearing abandonment. When you stop rejecting yourself, rejection loses its sting. When you stop betraying yourself, betrayal no longer defines you. And that's the day you realize nothing can hurt you anymore. But here's the paradox. It doesn't mean life stops being painful. Pain will still come. Loss will still come. Shadows don't vanish forever. But here's the shocking truth. Pain is no longer your enemy. It becomes your teacher. Jung taught that wholeness is not about avoiding pain, but about integrating it. The shadow doesn't disappear when you face it. It becomes part of you, a source of depth, strength, and wisdom. Think of it like gold hidden in the dirt. At first it looks ugly, frightening, something to be avoided. But when you dig, when you face it, you find treasure. This is why Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The treasure is not in pretending to be pure. The treasure is in owning your darkness and discovering the light hidden within it. Wait until you hear this. Once you integrate your shadow, reality itself feels different. The world no longer looks like a battlefield. It looks like a mirror, a playground, a teacher. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this showing me? And that single shift is the difference between suffering and freedom, because the truth is, freedom isn't about controlling the world. It's about no longer being controlled by your illusions about it. Here's the part nobody talks about. When you reach this point, people may think you're cold, detached, or uncaring. But the truth is, you're simply free. Their insults can't wound you. Their judgments can't bind you. Their rejections can't define you. Because you've already embraced the parts of yourself they're trying to attack. And that's why Jung's path is so liberating. The shadow you once feared becomes your shield. The darkness you once avoided becomes your strength. The day you face it fully. The day you own it, the day you integrate it, is the day you realize that nothing, absolutely nothing, can hurt you anymore.